Welcome to Nerds Amalgamated, a podcast that covers the latest events in science, pop culture, and gaming.
I'm the professor, aspiring game developer, sci-fi aficionado, and completely and undeniably a geek trying to take over the world. I'll be breaking down the news from tech to gaming.
I am the DJ, a humble nerd, a big weeb,
and a watcher from the halls of the multiverse.
Just kidding. Anyways, I'll be breaking down all things comics to movies to anime.
Join us and stay hydrated as we quench you with witty banter, unintentionally hilarious hot takes, and trivia more fun than a night at the pub, courtesy of Nerds Amalgamated. Welcome back to Nerds Amalgamated. This week we're talking about Valve being sued by the UK. Could Terry Pratchett's work have diagnosed his dementia more than a decade before his official diagnosis? And DC admitting defeat to Japanese manga. So, a few years ago, a lawsuit against Valve was started in the UK, and as of the start of this year, it's finally going ahead. It's a 656 million Great British pound lawsuit, which is about 900 million US dollars, or I'll just look this up.
Just get the accurate count there.
Yep. 1,288,852,681.60 in Australian dollars.
Wow, $1 billion. Wow.
Yeah, so the reason behind this massive lawsuit is that it's a digital rights campaigner, Vicky Shotbolt, who is setting up basically a class action, similar to a class action lawsuit, for the 14 million Steam users in the UK, because they charge an excessive commission of up to 30%, making UK consumers pay too much for purchasing PC games and add-on content. And the part of the problem is that they lock you into buying stuff only on Steam. So the way they lock you in, because it was a bit of a surprise to me that you could be considered locked into Steam, considering you can buy games off Steam and then redeem them on Steam.
Yeah.
Is something I've known for a long time, which is that if you're selling a game off Steam, selling a Steam key off Steam, you're not allowed to sell it for less than you were selling the game on Steam.
So if I were to buy a game for $40, I have to sell it at $40, and no.
If you're a game developer,
okay,
and you're selling games on Steam and your website, they both have to be $40.
Oh, okay.
Which does make me wonder, because I know I've bought a game in the past on a website and redeemed it on Steam. On an official developer's website. I'm not going to name names in case they get in trouble. Not that anyone listens to us anyway.
Wow, way to undersell us, man. A real rare sunshine, aren't you?
I am the sunniest. So, I've bought a game off Steam, which I'm pretty sure was on sale, but this was like 15 years ago, so I don't remember, for cheaper than it was on Steam. But I bought it off the website specifically because it came with a bundle of physical maps.
Wait, when you say physical maps, are you meaning like you get off the mail kind of physical, or?
Yeah, they had to post me a letter, like an envelope containing maps.
Wow, mail is still a thing. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, how you don't use the mail anymore kind of thing, you know?
Alright.
Yeah, but you were saying, so with the Steam, when you bought the games off Steam, and they gave you a physical map?
Yeah, so maybe I'm thinking it was on sale off Steam, but I'm just thinking of getting the physical stuff as well, and that's allowed, but this was also a long time ago, so the policy might have changed. The other key point that was made is that if you buy a game on Steam, you have to buy your DLC through Steam, which I've run into a couple of times with things like flight simulators. And they put together one of them, Rise of Flight, is a World War I flight simulator. And if you buy the stuff on Steam, you get bundles of aircraft. If you buy it off Steam, you can choose which aircraft you want to buy. So have you ever run into either of these problems, DJ?
In terms of buying all DLC from Steam only, I could think of like the Warhammer games, for example, where you have to go through Steam because no other platform holds it.
Well, that wouldn't be part of this. That would be an exclusive deal, which, or at least they haven't bothered to make a deal with anyone else. And it's more of a, but that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, fair enough.
Here they're talking about when you can buy the game somewhere else, but you're locked into buying more of it on Steam.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, it does show a bit of favoritism there. Yeah.
Yeah, so they make it hard to purchase DLC off the platform once you've got the game on Steam. And then there's the age old excessive commission argument,
Oh
which
yeah.
is pretty standard for Valve, Apple, Microsoft, I think. A bunch of companies charge 30%.
It's interesting you mentioned the 30% because this morning Epic CEO Tim Sweeney was talking about that, talking about the lawsuit and the 30% tax, and he quotes, "The only major store still holding onto payment ties and a 30% junk fee."
Okay, and what do you call your fees, Tim?
Okay,
Especially
what
considering Epic is like not even a quarter of the features Steam has.
what fees does Epic have? Just to let's give it a rundown, like for those who are not curious with Epic Games' fees.
I don't recall off the top of my head. I'll just see if I can pull them up.
Sure.
Let's see. It looks like they charge at most 12% of your commission. 12% commission.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'm seeing it here. They'll reduce those fees to zero if the game sells its first $1 million.
Until the game sells its first $1 million.
Yeah, and this will go into effect and will apply to a developer's revenue on a per app basis.
Yeah, so
That
that's a
is,
brave move because a lot of games don't make $1 million. Like, if you look at the statistics, most games make basically no money.
yeah, that I
But
agree. Like, I mean, even the recently released High Guard game, it's out for free, which is
yeah,
insane.
but presumably they've got a monetization model using cosmetics,
Hmm. Oh yeah, that's true.
but they still don't have any reviews or tons of features. And the reason I avoid Epic as much as I can, they don't support Linux. Tim Sweeney thinks we're all cheaters. Tim Sweeney is wrong.
So with these main allegations, so what does this mean, like, in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I could see Valve having to lower their fee if they're found excessive, and the thing I would mostly like to see is them open up the DLC purchasing, because I think like, they charge 30% commission, but it's
Yeah.
clearly worth it for all the games that release on Steam. And it's clearly not worth it because those games don't release on Epic instead. Like, the features Steam gives you are better than an extra, what, 18%. Wait, not extra. I can't do maths today. It's better than the extra money you would get from releasing on Epic.
So from a game developer's perspective, the 30% commission that everybody's talking about, is it genuinely unfair or is it just an industry standard?
I think it started as an industry standard, and
Hmm.
then there's a couple of stores that have offered lower commissions because they want to encourage people to use them. But I totally don't believe that Epic would be so generous if they were dominant.
And to the other point you were saying about Steam lowering its cut, if Steam does lower its cut, would the publishers pass that savings on to the players or no?
Big publishers, probably not. Indie games, probably.
Also, I typed up Vicky's name on the ye old Google, and here's an interesting thing with Vicky. So she's a leading campaigner for digital children's digital rights for over 20 years of senior leadership. The co-founder and CEO of Parent Zone, an organization that works with families and global brands to improve the lives of children. She chairs a charity for disabled children and sits on the UK Council of Child Safety. She is seeking permission to bring this claim against Valve through Vicky's Shopbot's Class Representative Limited, a company created specifically to represent affected UK consumers. She believes Steam users have been treated unfairly and may owe compensation. As someone who understands the value and enjoyment that gaming brings to people, Vicky is not trying to shut down Steam or stop anyone from gaming. Her goal is to ensure that Steam operates fairly and does not misuse its market power to overcharge consumers. This matters especially because UK gamers spend large amounts on PC games and add-on content, much of which is designed to encourage impulsive spending, something for which Valve profits. Importantly, Vicky will not profit from bringing the claim. This is all from the website www.steamuos.co.uk/about us. Put the show notes.
Well, she's not wrong that Valve profits from impulse spending on Steam. I mean, that was the whole thing with the super low sales they used to do, and why many people have more games in their library than they will ever have time to play in their lives.
Yeah, okay. Here's a question though. Like, have players been actually harmed from this, or is this just a theoretical consumer harm case?
Well, that's the argument. The whole reason this is a lawsuit. And the harm would be that you've paid too much for games and been forced to buy them through Steam. Which I don't know as much about UK consumer law as I do about Australian consumer law, and for obvious reasons. But yeah, excessive price gouging seems to be a real thing in the UK as well.
Yeah.
But does a luxury good really count as something that can be price gouged? I think that's going to be a key argument against this class lawsuit.
Yeah, and one thing one has to wonder though, like with this case as a whole, is this case really about Steam or is it just about redefining how digital marketplaces work? Like, and the other question you also have to wonder is, could this ruling change how console stores operates, like the PlayStation store, the Xbox store, the Nintendo store?
Well, it might lead to lower commissions on all those stores. It just depends on how hard Valve gets slapped.
Yeah, but the gamers are gonna suffer. But the gamers will suffer from this, and like the gamers
Why
will.
would the gamers suffer from lower prices?
I mean, you're going to. I mean, people go to Steam. They'll be like, "Oh yes, it is a popular place to go to." Like going to another place would be like, I won't get the same protections as Steam gives me."
Well, all of the protections you have on Steam are because
Hmm.
Steam wants to operate in places that have strict consumer rights laws, like Australia. Like, it wasn't until they got sued by the ACCC that they had to implement refunds. So for those other stores to be as dominant as Steam, they will have to follow the same laws.
Yeah, and it's also going to be. You also have to wonder though: is this lawsuit really about pricing or just who controls access to the PC gamers?
Well, look into who's funding Vicky Shotbot.
Oh, that would be an interest. Okay.
If it's Epic, then yes, it's about who controls the market. If it's actually independent, then it's about the consumers. But it wouldn't surprise me if, I'm not saying it is, but with the way Epic's been suing Apple, it wouldn't entirely surprise me to see them sue Valve as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Epic has been on a bit of a craze. The app when they versed against Apple. Remember the advertisements Apple Epic games were coming out, like the mock 1984 trailer.
Which itself was a parody of the Apple from the 1980s.
Yeah, yeah.
And also was Valve did a riff on it for Half-Life 2.
God damn.
Yeah, it's a iconic trailer. But on to our next topic. Gone but
Hmm.
not forgotten, GNU Terry Pratchett. I assume you are a fan of Terry.
I've heard that name before in regards to one story, and that's the Good Omen, which I don't think he personally wrote as well. It was Pratchett and Gaiman, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So you've never read Discworld.
No, but I have not read this well, but I've heard
And
about
you call
the
yourself a nerd. You call
Hey,
yourself a nerd and you haven't read
hey,
Discworld.
hey,
Get out!
I'm an anime nerd, damn it! But what is Discworld for those who haven't heard of this?
It's a flat Earth fantasy story where the Earth is a disc on the back of four elephants riding on a giant turtle through space. And it's got all the fantasy stereotypes. But it's also a sort of fantasy satire, and it's Terry Pratchett's most iconic work. But back in 2015, Terry Pratchett passed away from posterior cortical atrophy, which is a rare form of Alzheimer's disease. However, this new study suggests that looking at his work, you could predict the onset of his dementia more than a decade before it actually was diagnosed. The key changes that they're analysing here are the breadth of his vocabulary and variety in the description. So basically, the way he uses language changes over time. And they're trying to link this from just being an author developing in their style and settling into a sort of routine as they publish more and more books to the onset of dementia. Because he was writing up until his death. And he used to have 6 computer monitors. And when asked why he had 6, he said, "Because I can't have 8." I might
Wow,
have the
six
numbers wrong, but that's the story. And they've set up a replica of his writing desk in his in a museum in England somewhere.
Holy shit! There is actually a picture of him with wow, 6 monitors.
So looking at the data and away from the 6 monitors for a moment, the book The Last Continent was published almost 10 years before he was diagnosed. It features a significant drop in his vocabulary and types of adjectives he used, which is, it's really interesting that you can make this connection, but I haven't been able to find it for the show notes, but I found a comment trying to debunk the study, basically, saying that the type of dementia that Terry had is not typically characterized by forgetting words. So I don't know who's right, the study authors or the random comment. I'm leaning towards the study authors because random comments can be literally anyone.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder how you can apply this in the real world. Well, obviously Terry Pratchett's in the real world, but not many people have such a vast corpus of work that you can analyze.
Not even Frank Herbert, for
Frank Herbert
example?
wrote a lot, but Terry Pratchett was really prolific.
So could that be classed as one of the limitations for studying, like, an author's body of work?
Yeah, so I've just double checked. Terry Pratchett wrote 41 books just in Discworld.
Wow.
And there's like a dozen other books that he wrote and co-wrote, so
Hmm.
yeah, really prolific. Frank Herbert wrote a ton as well, but nowhere near that cadence.
With the change in language, via dementia, could the change in language also be explained by, like, age, genre evolution, or stylistic choice, though?
Yeah, that's the another consideration with this study
Hmm.
that could be a confounding variable. Like, there are plenty of authors who took a long time to really settle into their style and were still writing quality work after they settled in, but wrote a different style to what they'd previously written. And I think it would, yeah, confound it. Like, imagine J.R.R. Tolkien, who was also extremely prolific. He didn't publish everything he wrote like Terry Pratchett, but he was extremely prolific in writing Lord of the Rings once he started writing Lord of the Rings stuff. But nobody knows about his other works, like the translation of Beowulf.
Okay. I didn't know that, actually. That's wow.
Yeah, so now a translation is different to original prose, but it's obvious that leading up to Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien had different focuses. But also J.R.R. Tolkien was a linguist himself, so that could be a confounding variable if you wanted to diagnose him with Alzheimer's, because he is so
Prolific.
well, yeah, he's so prolific in his language creation that
Your brain's not working today, is
no,
it?
my brain is not working. Oh, I've lost that thought.
Hey, but that said, though, like, with his prolific language creation, if readers didn't notice the changes in the language, does that mean that the decline was functionally insignificant at that time, or?
Yeah, so back to the article, they do say that readers wouldn't be likely to notice the change. And yeah, I'd like to see more of the numbers. I haven't read the full study, I've just read the summary. but I assume the full study has more numbers in it showing how the vocabulary changed and by how much. Because they talk about a significant drop, but how much does that mean really?
I mean, it does show though that even a master storyteller isn't immune to the change to the subtle signs of cognitive decline. Sadly,
Yeah, nobody is. The
yeah.
only thing you can do is try to slow it down by keeping your brain active.
What's going to be interesting though, if with AI coming into being and monitor and how we've seen AI take memorizing all of the writing styles of books and in terms of language, prose, vocabulary, nuances.
Well, that's what they tried to do, yeah.
Yeah, if AI can spot a dementia in writing, could you imagine AI reading our emails for health warnings?
Well, yeah, that's a corpus of work I hadn't considered when I said most people don't have a significant corpus of work. If you feed in your emails and instant messenger chats and all that,
Yeah.
maybe there is enough there to diagnose early decline.
Oh boy. Can you imagine like you're drunk in the middle of the night and you're drunk emailing to your boss and the AI goes you're suffering from dementia mate or you're suffering from Alzheimer's. He's like, "No, I'm just drunk, damn it."
Yeah, that would be worrying. Especially if it immediately calls, like, the nursing home to come and cart you away.
Yeah, but with the whole idea of early your vocabulary and all the language is changing throughout the years. This is very interesting in terms of this could be early detection. This could be a sign of early detection, and this could inform like treatment and care if if this was if this was checked out.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of treatment available beyond slowing the progression, but perhaps it could be more effective if started sooner. Anyway, you should read some Pratchett.
Okay, okay.
I'm ashamed of you.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Also, as a actually, as a Pratchett fan, does knowing this change how you Pratchett's later novels?
I'm gonna be honest, I haven't
Mm.
gotten to novels.
Oh,
I've been reading Pratchett for like 20 years, and just when I find a book of his at a secondhand shop or something, so I'm not exactly reading them quickly, and it's gonna take me a long time to actually get to his later work. So yeah,
yeah.
but I think now I know this, it's gonna be hard not to have it in the back of my.
Also, mind you though, like us looking this through this, does our obsession with spotting diseases geniuses says more about society than the artists themselves?
I don't think so. Like, here we know Terry Pratchett had Alzheimer's. So it's not like people who diagnose Einstein with Asperger's, autism in the modern term, which was a bit of a trend a while back. I remember if you Google famous people with Asperger's or autism or whatever term, you will find lists of people who have famous people who cannot be diagnosed because the diagnosis did not exist when they were alive. So this is a case where we know what diagnosis he had, and they're looking for evidence of it in his work, rather than looking for evidence to make the diagnosis.
And I think when you look at it from a when you think about it now, like this sort of study fitting into Pratchett's openness, it would lead to a lot of advocacy around dementia later in life. You know, like how dementia can affect someone in later in life, and you look at Terry Pratchett's work and how
Yeah,
there
and
should
I
be
think that's a key part of Terry's legacy, because he was always a massive advocate.
yeah, and I think it also from a big picture perspective, where it does move into that future where art becomes a diagnostic data as well.
Yeah, and is having more ways to make a diagnosis a bad thing? I don't
Mm,
know. I mean,
mm,
maybe being diagnosed with Alzheimer's early leads to lower quality of life because you're constantly worrying.
I guess, but then again, I guess, but then again, there is being concerned, and then there's being too concerned.
Yeah, but then I'm almost certain that an early diagnosis would lead to better long term outcomes.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I agree with you, but yeah, there has to be a point where like damn it, now my brain's not working. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for passing your illness to me. Thank you. Oh, damn it.
Isn't it concerning that our brains stop working when we talk about brain disease?
Yep. I think we're facing a lexical decline. God damn it.
Well, let's move away from it while we still can.
Yep.
DJ, tell me why DC is being beaten by manga.
So Jim Lee, for those who are not familiar with the name, he is DC Comics president, publisher, and chief creative officer. And he says one big reason Japanese manga has an edge over Western comics is the sheer diversity of genre it offers, not just superheroes. And
Wait,
what he
there's
means
more
by that
genres than isekai?
I knew you were gonna put that. I knew you were gonna say that. Like there are others like cooking, sports, slice of life. So he basically says like unlike Western comics, which offers heavily focused on superhero stories, manga encompasses a wide variety of themes. So as I was saying, like sports, slice of life, and more, making it more like literature anyone can read. And Lee notes that in Japan, manga and anime are accepted by all ages and treated as mainstream medium, whereas in the West and animation have long been seen mainly as children's media. While he doesn't view manga success as a threat, but rather a goal and learning opportunity for Western comics, asking what the industry can learn about storytelling and sensibility to broaden its appeal. And Lee also ties manga's popularity to the global rise of Asian pop culture among young people looking for unique stories beyond traditional superhero fare. And a
Okay,
couple of
well, I wonder. I
yeah,
know there used to be more genres of Western comics than superhero. Like, Archie was huge back in whenever that was popular. The
that was
80s?
like
Earlier?
yeah, yes, I'm thinking 70s, but have a look.
Yeah, and that's sort of a slice of life, isn't it? I don't know, it's been a long time since I've read any Archie.
Oh, I used to read Archie years ago. So Archie comics, okay, hang on a second. Wow, 1942.
Okay, much
Damn.
older than we thought.
Yeah, a lot older than our granddads. Well, yeah, all our
Earlier than your
granddads.
granddad.
Yeah, shit. But yeah, it was a slice of life thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so there
But
used to be more variety.
hmm,
And I feel like a lot of that variety has either moved to television or died
yeah.
off completely.
Well, with the Archie comics, when you look through it, like I used to have a bit of a, I went down the rabbit hole of reading Archie comics years ago. Then I at least started looking through Wikipedia, like what happened to Archie comics, and there was like there was a plot line where Archie gets killed apparently. Yeah, there was it was in 2014, interestingly enough, and yeah, Archie dies when he was shot in the abdomen while saving his friend. And I'm like, what, Archie?
Spoilers.
Yeah. Oh, this 2014. Come on. But yeah. When Slice of Life comics, after Archie, there were others like there was Dilbert, for example, and
Yeah,
then there was
Dilbert's more of a sitcom type of.
and then what else was it? Then there was also Peanuts as well.
Yeah, Peanuts I could see as a sort of slice of life. But that's also a very old.
Yeah, yeah. What was the other one? Calvin and Hobbes as well. Like all those comics, when you compare it to like DC comics, they were not like just overarching plot or it was just it was just episodic. There was no big overarching plot. It was just monster of the week kind of stuff.
Yeah, but that's not unique to those comics
Hmm.
or Japanese comics because there's tons of overarching plots in Japanese comics,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
manga. Like, just off the top of my head, One Piece has that overarching plot of finding the pirate gold, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah.
And that's just had 1,000 episodes of the show and however many books of manga.
Too many. Too last I counted, look at Wikipedia, 113 volume. And yeah, that's a lot of volumes.
They're never finding that gold.
All last I recalled, they're gonna do the final arc of One Piece. So they will eventually find it. It's just gonna be a very, very, very long journey.
They open the chest and it's a note that says the real treasure was the friends you made along the way.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing with One Piece. The messaging with One Piece, it was always about the happiness of the happiness and the journey towards it. Like it wasn't like a story of revenge. It was just you made the journey. The journey is more important than the end goal. But Jim Lee has. Here are some quotes from Jim Lee about the whole story. For example, the stories being told in Japanese manga and anime is incredibly strong. I often ask myself, what is missing in the Western comics and why can't they achieve the same kind of flavor? I think manga has an advantage over American comics, which are largely focused on superhero. That's where most of the sales and readership are concentrated.
Well, I wonder if the contraction of the comic market in the West to be mostly super focused is as much of a because there's a lot of independent comics as well, but
Yeah.
or smaller labels, but the ones everyone thinks of when they think comics are superheroes. I wonder if the superhero comics, the contraction to superhero comics, is something that could have been avoided, or is something that is yet to happen to manga.
I mean, right now, with why Western comics are always associated with superhero comics is because of the popularization of Marvel. I mean, look at how much money is Marvel making.
Yeah, comics weren't cool until Marvel. They were
Yeah,
dorky.
yeah,
And then the Marvel Cinematic Universe happened and everyone's in the mix. But they're not because they only watch the movie adaptations.
yeah.
So they're not true fans. Ooh.
Oh, that's opening up a different can of worms, which I'm not gonna
Yes, it
look
is.
into.
Yeah,
Like,
so
but that said though, like with Western comic, like what Jim was saying with the whole like seeing Japanese manga, looking at like sports comics and cooking comics and slice of life, for example, can we see examples of Western comics already experimenting with this kind of like genre diversity? Like, have
I
you
don't
ever
know. I'm
seen?
not in touch enough with comics to say that. But I could see it being a thing. I don't know why comics contracted to just superheroes, but I could see them expanding again. I think there's going to be a bit of an expansion towards books because, and possibly to comics, because people are, at least in my circles, people are trying to move away from social media and online content because of the things like the ads, I've forgotten the other reasons, my brain's still not working. But
Okay, but
in my circles, people are sort of moving towards books.
yeah.
And if you only look at an airport bookstore, you'll think all books are murder mysteries.
Oh yeah, all the romance
But they're
bits, all
not.
the romance. Yeah.
Yeah, murder mysteries and romance. But there's a huge body of work for any genre in books. So, are we just looking at the wrong places? I don't think so. I think in this case, we're looking at the right place to say that Western comics are all superheroes, because things like Marvel and DC are such a huge percentage of the market.
What's with comics in the West though? Now that you mentioned with the whole in your with your friends that are all going to books, is the fact that people still view comics as like children's media. Well, it's still off. Yeah, it's still classed as seeing children's media. Like when you go to books, it's like okay, it's adult media now.
Yeah, because those of us who read books don't need pictures to go along with the words.
That's the
No,
thing though. Like,
I will admit personally I'm not the biggest fan of comics because I read too fast and I don't pay enough attention. But I have been reading The Eternal,
yeah.
which recently got turned into a Netflix show, but I decided to track down the book.
The interesting you mentioned about the whole being an adult and you don't rely on pictures to look at all the stuff. Can Western comics shift that perception to attract adult audience? Like go like this is more than our comics are more than just pictures on a book. Like there's words, there's actions. And
Yeah, I think with the right advertising, comic publishers could attract a wider audience. I don't think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that comics are for kids.
yeah,
Just like it's not games aren't for kids. Like there have always been adult games, but if you look at
yeah,
the demographic of gamers, for a long time the average age of gamers was increasing, and we were getting deeper and adult content. And I don't mean adult content as in sex and violence, I mean thematically adult. So I think maybe this next generation who have grown up with Marvel's cinematic universe comics will possibly branch out into other genres.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Would you, if you were to expand the Western comics into any non-superhero genre, what would you choose and why?
Well, I was a big fan of the sci-fi Firefly comics.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I mostly read sci-fi comics when I read comics. The comics I've read in the past several years are The Eternaut, Snowpiercer,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
and Firefly. And next on my list for comics is going to be a manga, which is Planets,
Nice.
which
That
is a
that
hard
anime's
sci-fi.
oh yeah,
So,
that the anime's a real nice one to watch as well.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously I'm not the most exposed to comic genres, but I guess you could say superheroes are sci-fi.
Oh, is it though? Is it
Some
though?
of it's sci-fi, some of it's fantasy.
Yeah, it's a weird mix. Like I mean,
That's why we
I mean,
invented science fantasy.
yeah, because the cultural perception that perception gap is going to be interesting. Like some people think superheroes is just kiddie superhero it's just key stuff. Some people will think superheroes is adult stuff. So yeah, but my fear is that if Western comics decide to try and copy the manga side, is it going to alienate the core fans
I don't think
or
so.
not? But then it's gonna you're gonna risk like you do if you're gonna do things to risk irrelevance, like you're gonna alienate a core fan base essentially.
What core fan base? If you're Marvel and you're known
Hmm.
for publishing superheroes and you decide to publish something else and you keep publishing superheroes, your core fan base is going to keep being superheroes.
I guess so, but like let's say Marvel decides to go with Marvel manga, which I think that was a thing back then. Like your core fan base would be like, ugh, manga? Ugh, I didn't sign up for this. I'm gonna watch I still want my Marvel comic.
Yeah, that's why you adapt the genres to comic form rather than just copy pasting a manga.
That's true. But that said though, you say about adaptation. If Western comics don't adapt, they'll risk becoming niche while manga becomes mainstream. Well, that'd be interesting. That'd be
I
an
mean, isn't
interesting.
that already true? Most people's exposure to comics is through movies
Yeah.
and manga. I don't think Western comics have much of a foothold, except among the like hyper nerds.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. What? Now that you mention that, the one comic I can think of that's close to having a foothold is the Watchmen comics with Alan Moore's work. That's the
Okay,
one
and
comic
that
I could.
is a superhero comic with very adult themes.
Yeah,
So the question is there a market for that, or is it saturated by Watchmen? It's hard to tell because nobody's bothered to do anything new. There's just endless adaptations of Alan Moore's work.
yeah, yeah. Even the well, I was thinking even the Injustice DC Injustice series feels like a what if superheroes were left unchecked.
Anyway, I think
But
we've
you,
been talking about that for long enough, so we'll take a quick
yep.
break and be on with our shoutouts, messed up moment, and wacky movie. And this week, as every week, we are supported by Res. Focus and energy formula for the long game. It helps you maintain your concentration and focus. It relieves weariness and fatigue. Not feariness and fatigue. Decreases mental and cognitive fatigue and reduces eye strain. And it's crisp appleberry flavour and it tastes really good. You can get 10% off at DrinkRez, that's drinkrez.com, with the code NERDS. And on with our shoutouts. On the 28th of January 1896, we have the first person to be convicted of speeding. Walter Arnold of East Peckham in Kent was fined 1 shilling plus costs for speeding at 8 miles per hour in a 2 mile per hour zone. Converted to metric, that's 13 kilometers an hour in a 3.2 kilometer an hour zone. He was going more than triple the speed limit.
Funnily enough, this I just looked at the date. I tried to calculate the eight number of years ago that was. Apparently, this is 130 years ago.
Okay.
Speed, wow, speeding fine is 130 years old. Damn.
And what is the inflation on? I wonder if
Well,
if I just Google UK inflation calculator, if I can find one that figures that out. See, bankofengland.co.uk. How far back did we go back? Far enough. So 1896. Wait, what's a shilling in? I don't know how many shillings make up a pound.
hang on a sec. Shilling to a pound. 1 pound is 20 shillings. That's the old British currency. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 1
So
pound
as a
is
decimal, that's 0.05. So that would put us at 0.05 pounds in 1896, calculated to December 2025, would cost £5.82 in modern times. Obviously, this doesn't take into account the consumer price index or anything.
Huh. I'm looking at a different inflation calculator. This is from the 121 in 2013 dollars.com. And I just put 1 pound start year of 1896 26. Your 1 pound in 1896 is worth 172 pounds today.
Okay, well, it's complicated because I don't know how these calculators take stuff in the back end into account with the consumer price index. Yeah, so according to the website for the Bank of England, there's a bunch of different maths going on in the back end. But being so long ago, it's hard to make sure the calculation works.
I converted the 172 pounds to Australian dollars. Your speeding fine in Australian terms back then, with inflation and stuff, it'll be $339.
Okay.
That is a lot of money.
Well, what's a speeding fine in Australia these days?
I think it's like $700 or something like that.
Something more than that. So yeah, it's gone up. Anyway,
Uh,
so back to the shout out.
yeah.
Walter Arnold was speeding in a motorized vehicle when spotted by a policeman on a bicycle and pursued for 5 miles before being pulled over. He was one of the earliest car dealers in the country and the local supplier for Benz vehicles. He also owned his own car company producing Arnold motor carriages. And there's a note here that the speeding offence probably was a case of no publicity is bad publicity. So he faced 4 counts. The first count for using a locomotive without a horse. The next count was for having fewer than 3 persons in charge of this locomotive, a speeding charge, and a charge for not having his name and address on the vehicle. In his defense, his barrister stated that the existing acts had not foreseen the type of, and that if the bench considered the vehicle a locomotive, then it should fall under the existing acts and they should charge a nominal fine. So he was charged 5 shillings plus £2 and 11d, which I think is a shilling, on the charge of using a carriage without a locomotive horse. On the other counts, he was charged 1 shilling and 9 shillings cost. Wait, sorry, this doesn't add up because it then says his speeding offence cost him a shilling.
Yeah, which is
So how does that add up that he is paying £2.11? No, that doesn't add up. Okay, we're going to move on before my brain breaks again. But at the time, one of the requirements for using a motor vehicle was to have a person with a red flag walking in front of it so everyone knew it was coming. And I assume that's part of the charges that he didn't have a person with a red flag, because even Usain Bolt couldn't keep up with a red flag for that long. And on the 28th of January 2026, we had the 40th anniversary of the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion. On this date, in 1986, Space Shuttle Challenger broke apart 73 seconds flight, killing all 7 crew members. It disintegrated at 46,000 feet, or 14 kilometers, over the Atlantic Ocean. At 4:39 and 13 seconds p.m. UTC, it was the first fatal accident involving an American spacecraft in flight. And among the crew was Krista McAuliffe, who was being taken into space under the Teacher in Space program, which led to this being broadcast live in schools around the US.
that I would hate to be the kid in that class. Man. That would have been terrifying. That's terrifying.
Absolutely. And the cause is because of low temperatures on the morning of the launch, which stiffened the rubber O-rings and prevented them from properly sealing the joints of space shuttle boosters. After liftoff, the O-ring failed, and hot pressurized gas from within the booster leaked out and burnt the attachment strut connecting a booster to the propellant tank, and then into the propellant tank itself explode.
So they have effectively turned the space shuttle into a bomb.
Yeah, and it caused a 32-month hiatus in the space shuttle program while the investigation was underway. And it's sadly could have been preventable because test data had indicated a flaw with the O-rings in the past, but NASA and the manufacturer Morton Vehicle refused to address the defect, and NASA's managers disregarded warnings about the dangers of launching in low temperatures. It's one of those cases where the desire to continue launching overcame the desire for safety.
Because the space race was still going on, wasn't it? Around this time, right? Or was it
No,
officially over?
the space race was really until the landing on the moon. And there was another hull loss of a space shuttle in 2003 when Columbia disintegrated during re-entry. The Columbia Accident Investigation Board concluded that NASA had failed to learn many lessons from Challenger.
Oh shit! Oh
Yeah,
no!
though Columbia was a different cause. Columbia, a piece of foam fell off the propellant tank and gouged out a hole in the heat protection tiles on the wing of the orbiter.
Yeah, I
And
heard
then
about
during
that.
re-entry, that obviously failed and it disintegrated. But with Columbia, there was no way to rescue the crew once they were in space, because at the time NASA didn't bother to have a backup shuttle ready to go. And it was after Columbia that they started having a backup shuttle, which they could have used to bring home the astronauts, deliver supplies to them by time to bring them home. And on to hopefully a happier topic. What's our messed up moment this week, DJ?
So remember how you were talking the other day about the molasses spill and how it was
Yes.
so I've got one about the ice cream spill, and this was a 20-foot tall 17.5 ton treat of a frozen popsicle known as Snapple, and it was terrifying. It's terrifying in terms of putting popsicle in the middle of New York Times Square. This event, which has been called the
So to
Snapsicle.
clarify, it's an oversized popsicle,
Yep,
like a
mate.
publicity stunt with a giant popsicle made out of real ice cream.
Yep, strawberry, kiwi strawberry.
That's an interesting
Uh,
flavor.
Yep. This event, which was called the Snapsicle, was supposed to promote Snapple's new line of frozen treats and break a Guinness World Record. But no sooner had the ice pop rested on the sidewalk, it began to melt. Well, actually, no. Actually, it began to flood. The red goo bathed the street, sloshing its way across 17th Street. Then the situation took a more dangerous turn when a woman who fell into the hazardous slush was rushed to hospital with a badly sprained ankle. Three cyclists were catapulted off their bikes, police were called, streets were closed, fire trucks were summoned to wash the stinking pink nightmare down the sewers. This a brilliant piece of creative marketing, became an utter PR disaster.
Oopsie.
And this was, mind you, during an 80-degree first day of summer heat.
And I'm just going to have to double check that because I don't know the conversion off the top of my head. That's
Uh-huh.
26 degrees in
Oh
Celsius.
yeah. Oh
So yeah,
yeah.
that's reasonably warm for a first day of summer in New York. So yeah, I can see why it melted faster than expected.
Yeah, and the company decided not to, the company was unlikely to make a second attempt to break the record, and but then they set by the 20-foot ice pop in Holland in 1997. So the record still stands. But can you imagine? Can you imagine an ice pop of this magnitude in Brisbane City?
Yeah, just plop it down in King George Square, it'll be right.
That'd be terrifying. I don't want to think about it.
Now, King George Square would be a bad place because it would probably go down into the bus tunnel.
Oh no! Oh, the angry bus drivers. Oh yeah, yeah,
It would probably make King George Square station smell nicer than it does, though. I don't know how they spent so many years renovating it and it still stinks.
yeah, yeah. You remember the time when the whole Brisbane CBD got flooded? Oh, that was terrifying.
Which time?
2011 floods.
Oh, yeah, not as bad as 1893.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, a wacky movie. On the 28th of January 2011, Karate Robo Zaborga premiered in the Netherlands. A young man with a motorcycle that has the ability to transfer into a karate fighting robot hunts down a gang of evil cyborgs to avenge the death of his father. It's a remake of the 1970s show Denjin Zaborga.
I mean, when you look at the costume design and everything, it just looks absolutely weird. Like,
And
like
why a
how could a
motorbike?
why a motor? Indeed, why a motorbike of all things?
So, despite having a larger budget and filming schedule, the director said the film was shot in 26 days, which is shorter than the average Japanese production, but longer than his previous films, The Machine Girl or Robo Geisha, which each took about 12 days. And that he had a budget of about $3 million, which is more than a few hundred thousand that he had for his earlier films. And the international versions of the film are shorter than the Japanese cut, because they had to cut all sex scenes and overtly violent scenes so it could be sold in China.
We got to please the Chinese audience at one way or the other.
Yep. Well, that's all we have for this week. Look after yourself, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.
Check out our audio platforms on Spotify and iHeartRadio, for example. This podcast is supporter sponsored, so check out our Kofi account. Any bit that helps the podcast. Also check out our social media where we post all of our stuff there, and we also do Twitch streaming as well. We play the wonderful games such as Marvel Rivals and Misery as well. So stay happy, stay nerdy. See you guys.